Alright, welcome back to Some Assembly Required. Last week we locked everything down with a Fasten Mate. This week we're finally letting things move. We're diving into the Revolute Mate, and to show it all off, I built a simple hinge model in Onshape with 2 plates, some knuckles, and a pin right down the middle. We'll throw it into an assembly, drop on a Revolute Mate, and watch this thing swing open and shut. So let's get started. Alright, if we come over to Onshape, you'll see that I have some documents, and I'll put these in the description as one single PDF. But what we're going to do today is make a hinge. So we have hinge 1, hinge side 2, and a hinge pin. And I'm going to show you the way I made it. I'm sure there's other ways to do these things. It's always, everybody's got a different way of making it. But let me go to the finalized version of this. There we go. We'll zoom back out. And you'll see kind of this is what we're going to be working with today. We're going to draw it all in place, then we're going to throw it into an assembly, and then I'm going to show you how to make it all move together. So let's go back to home. We'll start in the Hinge studio, and we'll take a look. So what we need to do is draw this shape first. So I recommend drawing the hinge 1, and I'm going to walk you through step by step. But what I like to do is how I drew it is I drew this shape here from the side. So we're going to start with this, and we will maneuver around. So we have a 0.125 inch circle diameter in the center, a 0.25, and then we have a rectangle that's 125 centered on that 0.875, and we'll trim some stuff up. So let's jump back over and let's make that thing. Alright, now back in here I've created a part studio called Hinge Studio. When you start a document, remember you're always going to have at least one part studio and an assembly. All these extra things I worked on ahead of time, but we have our assembly. We have our Hinge Studio. It's called Part Studio, but I renamed it to Hinge Studio to kind of help us out. So we're going to start on the front plane. So we'll select that front plane and press Shift and S, N on our keyboard to normalize, and P to hide those planes. And we're going to base everything around the origin. So first thing we're going to do is draw that center point circle. So C on your keyboard, and that diameter needs to be 0.125. If you ever draw something like this and it's really, really small, what you can do is press the letter F, and it'll bring, F stands for fit, and that'll bring it kind of front and center to that scale that you're drawing in. Next, we're going to draw another circle concentric to that same center point, and it's going to be 0.25. Now we're going to draw a center point rectangle using the letter R. We're going to track with this origin. We're going to kind of come out over here, and then we're going to come up like so. Our measurement here needs to be 0.875, and our measurement here needs to be 0.125. So you should get this shape like this. Afterwards, we're going to come in, get that fit. There we go. Afterwards, we're going to come in with a trim tool, so M on the keyboard, and we're going to just cut out what we don't need. And that's the shape we need, kind of like a keyhole shape. Again, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. We're kind of going to go the simplest route. So after that, we have our shape. If we look back at hinge 1, you'll see that our shape, our actual hinge piece, needs to be 2 inches long. So now we're going to extrude it that 2 inches, and then we're going to do some cutting. So if we go back to our Hinge Studio, we'll select this shape, we'll press Shift and E, and we're going to say 2 inches. And if we come up to the top, you can see this will work, but I'm all about keeping things symmetrical, especially when they are. So we'll say symmetric, we'll base that there, and then we'll go out accordingly. So 2 inches symmetric, solid, and we'll say accept. Now from this point, you can go in and add those radii, we can add some circles, but I'm kind of focusing on the stuff that we're here for. This is kind of some nice extra stuff. Those rounded corners and adding those holes. Yes, obviously if we were doing a real hinge, we'd need those. But I'm gonna focus on our, what are called the knuckles. So we'll switch back over. And the reason they're called this is if you take your hands and you lock your fingers together, the only thing you can really do is hinge those back and forth, right? Well, these knuckles kind of act like that hinge. So if you're able to do that, that's what's going on with hinges. So we look and we need to draw a pattern. So we're going to select this face, or this face rather, if you see the, we're going to select this face. Sorry, I was on my face still. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this face right here, this top of this hinge that we've drawn, and we are going to do some increments. So we have essentially 5 spaces that need to be 0.4 of an inch tall, and so we'll space those evenly. We'll use a linear pattern. And you're probably wondering where this measurement's coming from. Well, it's just the full width where the end of that circle would have been. So it's going to be 0.25 out as well. So we'll set that accordingly. So we're going to select this face, Shift and S to start our sketch. I'm going to draw we're going to use. So we'll use this line. And essentially what you can do is you can offset it. And luckily it defaults to 0.25, so we'll say OK. Now we're going to come in with a rectangle, a corner rectangle, so we'll go G, we'll click that top point, we'll zoom in and we'll click there, and we need this to be 0.25 and 0.4, so we'll say OK. But that popped up, so what I want is to make sure that these two lines coincide, so I'll select them and press I, and you'll see it'll shift that down accordingly. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to select that linear pattern. I'm going to select my shape, and we don't need 3 that way, so we're going to double click that 3x and change that to a 1. And this one we need actually 4 of them, or 5 of them, sorry, 5 of them, but we need that swapped the other way. So just click that that arrow, and then where this measurement says 1, we need the spacing to be the exact same size as those little slots. So we're going to say 0.4, and we'll say OK. I'm going to shut off my part so we can see that sketch, and you'll see I have 4 or 5 little chunks equally spaced across as we go. So at this point, turn it back on. I can go back in my sketch, and let's go ahead and add those circles. So I'm going to need a circle here in the corner that is 0.25, so we'll press enter. The dimension of that from the right side is 0.25, and from here is also 0.25. So you can do that. Another way I like to do this, and some of you guys probably have seen this before, you do if you're doing speed modeling, you'll do a corner rectangle. We'll go Q to make a construction line, and then 0.25, enter, 0.25, enter, and because I had it coincide with that circle, it kind of did that for me. So that's another easy way to do that. We can do another pattern if we want. We've already tried that today, so let's do another one. We'll change that to 1, because we only need 1 that way, and this way we need 2. And if we look back at our hinge, the distance between those two, so if we take 2 minus 0.25 minus another 0.25, that gives us 1.5. So we can make that measurement 1.5. So again, we'll do the circle, the pattern, change that to 1, change that to 2, change that to 1.5, and we'll say OK. And the reason I want to do this is because as we go, we are going to actually mirror this thing over. And I'm a big believer in whenever you cut something out, or if you're going to do it and you're going to have to do it multiple times, and you can mirror it, do it before you mirror it. It's one less click you got to do. So next up, we are going to do these fillets. So we're going to click that corner and that corner, and we'll accept it. And you might be wondering why I didn't tell you what it was. If we go back and we check, we need that radius to be 0.25. So our radius on our hinge needs to be 0.25. I don't know what the measurement was, but if we double click in it, you'll see it's a 0.125. So we're going to click that, click 0.25, and then press enter. And now we have our radii the way we need them to be. And now we can accept it. So from here, I am going to extrude my holes. So I'm going to select those two. We're going to change this to a through all, and we're going to say remove. And you'll see now it has cut those holes. We'll accept that. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to mirror. So we'll use the mirror tool, because we need to flip this thing over to exist in the same spot, but we don't want it to be the same thing. So right now it's selected as new, but when I select this entity and press the P to turn our planes back on, you'll see I have that right plane that splits my hinge perfectly. So I'm going to click the mirror plane and select that, but you'll see it jumped right over. If you look, it jumped right over to add. And if we make it add, I'll go ahead and show you, I have one solid piece now. And that's not what we want. So if we come back over here to mirror, double click on that, and we change it to new, we say OK. Now you'll see in my parts list down here I have two parts. Even though it looks the same over here, I have two different parts. So one quick thing to do is if you click the part and then you come over here to this little like color swatch thing, appearance panel, what it'll do is you have your two parts. So we're going to pick part 2, double click on that color, and I'm going to make it a gray just so it stands out. And we can hide that panel now, and you can see I have kind of this weird like zebra pattern kind of deal. Well, it's because those two exist in the same dimension right now. So what we need to do is start cutting some stuff out. So I am going to hide part 2. But if you take a look, what we'll do, so we're going to do that extrude. We are going to click remove, and it's going to ask us which faces we want to remove. So we'll turn that sketch, we'll turn part 1 off so we can see. And again, we want to remove only opposite of what we need. So this time we're only going to select these two. We won't go blind. We'll say through all, and we'll go symmetrical. That way we can kind of future-proof ourselves if we ever make this bigger, smaller, change whatever, right? We'll turn part 1 back on so we can see. And right here where it says merge scope, we're going to say merge scope. We'll click that, and we'll click part 1. So it's only cutting away from part 1. So if I turn part 2 back on, you'll see it's not actually cutting those out. We still have those issues where it's overlapping, but it's not overlapping in these parts right here because we don't have anything there anymore. So we're going to do it again. We'll click extrude, and this time we're going to shut part 1 off and part 2 off, and we're going to select the opposite. So this time I need the things we just made, and because it's making these blocks, sometimes it's a little easier to see because we're in new, but this time we want to say remove again, remove through all, symmetrical, and that merge scope is going to be part 2 this time. So you'll see we can say OK, and if I turn both of my pieces on, now we don't have any interference because they are working with one another. So pretty cool things you can do there. In the real world, if I was to actually make this, I would want to add a little bit of tolerance, some gap, some wiggle room. Let me shut that sketch off. These being that close, they're going to rub, they're going to grind. Obviously, if you put it on a door, eventually those moving back and forth are going to help and they'll wear each other down. But from factory to start, what I would do is kind of use this. We'll shut part 2 off. I would pick each side and use like the thicken command. We'll do remove and go out like 0.005. So you'll see it's going to cut a little bit. We don't need to do that for this, but that's what I would do if I was actually, maybe you're going to 3D print this. That's how you would do this. And we'll turn part 2 back on. Before we draw our pin, let's get that chamfer. So if we look, we need a chamfer of 0.025. So we can do chamfer. We'll select all my holes and we'll say chamfer again, 0.025. I know I had it already typed in there from before, but it's good to show you guys how to put those things in. So there is our hinges. It looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and look at this from the front, okay? And then we'll look at it from the top. And now we need to have our pin slide all the way down the center, right? Now I know you're like, what the heck, man? These things are offset, they're jagged. And you're right, but our hole lines up perfectly. So if we look at it that way, right? So we're going to look at this again from the top. We're going to turn our planes back on. And now we're going to draw this pin. So if we look over here at the hinge pin assembly, essentially what we're going to do is draw half of this and we're going to revolve it around. So that really the big thing we need is this detail view here. So if we look, let me move that a little bit. There we go. We're going to have a rectangle that goes up 0.013. We're going to have a radius, a circle with a radius of 0.125. And we're going to go out with a rectangle that's 0.2 with a length of 2 to the bottom of that head. So we will jump in here and go back to our Hinge Studio and we'll click top. Again, we'll do Shift and S, end to normalize, and we are going to draw from right here. So we're going to use this line. So we'll say click it and we'll press U for use. And I'm going to draw a line that goes from the midpoint, from our center point right there, okay, all the way down, and we'll let it, you can go past if you want, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to click that point, we're going to click that line, and we're going to say I for coincide, so it only goes as long as that is, and then we will go a rectangle. So we're going to do corner rectangle. But we're going to give, now that we have that line, we can delete it. I'm actually going to use a midpoint line first. So we'll go from the midpoint here. We're going to go out. And here we said we want to go 0.2. And that's going to give us some room on either side. Next, we're going to do a rectangle from there. Kind of come up like this. And that's going to stay 0.2, and we need to go up 0.013. And now from here we can do an arc. We'll do a 3-point arc, so we're going to go here, here, and then just click, and it's going to ask us for a radius, and that radius we need to be 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch. And we're good. And last but not least, we're going to go here and we're going to draw a rectangle from this center. Oh, I'm still on the arc. We're going to draw a rectangle, not a center point rectangle, come on, a corner rectangle from here all the way down to the bottom. We're going to track off of here and we'll go out to the side. Now, you notice our pin, if we look over at our hinge pin drawing, or sorry, our hinge drawing, our hole for our hinge is 0.125. So we're going to need to make that a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is come here, and if we dimension from here, we'll use a line, we'll kind of use a center line, okay, or a construction line. If I dimension from here to here, and I make that 0.125, it's going to be exactly side to side, you'll see. But we need to give it a little bit of wiggle room, right, for that to fit if we were making this in the real world. So what I'm going to do is make that 0.120, and you'll see that it takes just a little gap around there, right? So if we come back up to the top, last thing we need to do is continue this line all the way up. So we have half of it. Now we're going to use the revolve tool. I'm going to shut off the rest of my parts. Okay. And I'm going to deselect that side so I only have my pin like so. It's going to ask me for a revolve axis. And I could pick this line, but I could also pick the line down here. You know, whatever works for you. We're going to pick that line. And now I have my pin. So we'll say OK. Before we select that, though, one thing, remember, make sure it's new and not add. It's going to try to add to the rest of your parts. So we'll say OK. And if we turn all our stuff on, you'll see I now have a hinge with a pin inside. So that is how you draw the hinge. Now we're going to jump over into our assembly tab, and I'm going to show you how to make things kind of move around one another. So let's switch over there. All right, so here is our assembly, and from here we're going to click insert, and we'll insert our whole part studio. So I'll just click Hinge Studio. I know I have Part Studio 1, that's the one I drew up before. If you're following along, you should only have one Part Studio, so just remember that. So I'll bring in Hinge Studio 1, and remember, if I go to move my mouse around, it's going to place it somewhere random, but I'm going to go ahead and set that there like so. So I'm going to move my gray one, I'm going to move my pin, and I'm going to click this piece, right click, and say fix. So everything we do from here on out is not going to move because that's going to be based. So my hinge 1, my blue piece, is going to be hinged or fixed to that origin. So now what we need to do is we're going to go add Revolute Mate. So if we come up here, again, it's the same shortcut key. I told you guys last week, all the mates, for the most part, you press the letter M on your keyboard, and it's going to tell you kind of what you're doing. But if you're kind of like me, when I first started learning, I really wanted to go into each one and figure out how to use each one. So this one, again, it says allows rotation about the Z-axis. The first selection serves as the rotational point, and the second as the stationary point. So which part's going to move and which part's going to be stationary, okay? And now that I'm thinking about it, I think I want our pin to actually be the one that stays fixed in place. So let's do that. We'll fix the pin, we'll move the hinges, and we'll go accordingly. So because we have these kind of going together, we'll start with our bottom one, okay? So we're going to use our Revolute Mate, and again, the part you pick first, this first selection serves as the rotational point. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to select this circle right here, the bottom of this hinge. And then I'm going to come over here and select the center of our circle, of our pin, and you'll see things are lined up fairly well. Okay? So we can say, all right, again, the offsets are still there. But what I want to show you now is if I press this little play button, you'll see it'll do an animation. And if I can show you how to animate later. But if we want it maybe to flip, it's not really going to help us so much in this aspect. If I needed to rotate it around, which again doesn't really help us in this aspect because the whole thing can spin. So we're going to let that lie how it is, and we'll go ahead and say OK. And now because that one's in there, we're going to let this one, there's a couple of ways we can do our next Revolute. I could go and do the same thing I did here and select this bottom one and select here, but this time give it an offset. And remember, our offset on our Z is going to be 0.4. Okay? 0.4. There we go. And the problem is that only worked up one direction. Okay, so it not only does it need to go 0.4, it needs to go even more than that. So it's because I picked that one. So we could try 0.8, and it's going the other direction, right? So how are we going to do this? Could I go negative 0.4? And that's what we need to do. So a lot of times when I do these, you kind of got to play around and figure out which direction you're going. Yeah, you clicked the Z, but it's showing that Z arrow up. So if I wanted to go up, or if it's going up, it's kind of wonky to play with. So just try it. You're not always wrong. Or I could have done, again, I could have done 0.4 and then flipped it, but you'll notice that it threw my chamfer on the other side. So we want to make sure we keep that negative 0.4. And again, we can say, okay, play, and you'll see it's going to use that hinge. And the problem we're running into is the fact that it has some interference. So we're going to accept it, and now I can take this and I can use kind of the rotation tool when we're like in transform, and it'll give me some stuff. So at what point should it not rotate anymore, right? When do we want to stop letting this thing rotate? So if we look at it from over here, right, when should we stop? So when will we get interference? You're kind of playing with it. So 104, we'll go like 135. We'll go 150, 135 again. See, so if we look right here, 135, our corner's hitting. So let's try 130. Let's try 125. And it looks like almost there, but we're interfering. So a couple of things I could do. If this was a real world part, I could kind of add a fillet there, and that might fix it around those edges. And if you've ever looked at real hinges, they do have kind of a sweep there, and it's probably for this reason right there. But let's try 120. And no interference now. We're good there. So if we limit it to 120 and we go back in our bring it back to home. There we go. All right, so if you're trying to animate, you're going to come up here and you can look at these Revolute Mates, and you can do a limit, and you can add some limits. 120, and we'll do negative 120. And the problem is it doesn't like it. So if we try to play this, that's what it'll look like, but it doesn't like it. It won't allow it, even though that's the terminology you need. So if I typed in what that would be of 240, well, now it's going the wrong direction on itself, and that's not what we want. We need it to go that negative 120. So I'm hoping that Onshape will come up with a fix for this. But for the time being, if you want to see that, instead of doing it here with limits, go ahead and say okay. If you come up here and you do right click on any of your mates and you click animate, this is probably what you guys wanted to see anyways. This is where you can do it. So you can do a start value. So for us, we need a start value of negative 120 and an end value of 120. Okay, we're gonna let that reciprocate, and we'll press play, and you'll see now it's gonna go. Let's look at that from an ISO view, and it's stopping where it would normally stop. So that's how you do kind of an animated hinged part. If you're looking to show this for like maybe some sort of design you're doing to show to customers, what I like to do is I shut off the origin. I try to make this as small as I can, or even moved out of the way. Unfortunately, it shows your mate, but what you could do is do like a screen record and then go about it that way. Another way I've done it too is I've had it kind of have a little pin down here that was hidden in the ISO view, and you could kind of rotate around. But basically, there you have it. We have our hinge, how we would need to be doing that. So you can rotate again if you're looking for animation. What you can do, if you want it to go faster, you change those steps. The more steps you have, the longer it takes. So right now we're at 300. If I make this 1,000, and we press play, it's going to go a lot slower because it's more steps it has to take. I believe if you go down, I forget what the limit is, but you try 1 and it yells at you usually. Yeah, so 2 to 300 and 3,600. So if I make it 2, you'll see that thing's, and you can probably barely even see it on the camera. It's going really fast in person. It looks like the pickup's not going so fast. But if I change that to like 5, now you can see it moving a little faster. If I go to 50, you'll see, there we go, moving a lot faster. If I go to all the way to that 3,600, you'll see we press play. It's going, but it's going very, very slowly. So you can do, let's go back to like 500. You can do reciprocation, you can do a single play, or you can do loops. You can just let it keep going. So it'll go, it'll get to the end of its piece, and then it'll start back over. So for a hinge, I don't really like loop. Single, again, it'll be like loop, but it'll just play at one time instead of looping back over. It'll play, it'll go, it'll get to the end of its path, then it'll stop. But for what I like to do, usually I end up doing reciprocate, and you can see that go back and forth as we go. So that's going to do it for us. Next week we will go into slider mate. So I'll have some projects for that. But I want to know what you guys think. So if you guys are watching this, in the comments, I want to know about, we'll switch over, some different projects. So we made this last year in my ag mechanics contest at school. You guys looking for more realistic projects or just basic how-to kind of tutorials? So I know you teachers out there are looking for some sub-day work. And some of you engineers are just looking for some cool ways to make some stuff, or hobbyists or whatever. So we kind of made this grabber from scratch, me and the boys, and it was a cool, fun little cold metal project. They had to drill all the holes and make sure everything aligned accordingly. Had to stack it together right. I have this all drawn up already, but I think it'd be cool to kind of show you guys how to draw it and go from there. So any feedback or any tips or anything you guys want to see me make, let me know. I'm all for it. I'm not running out of ideas, but I just want to give you guys what you want. So let me know down in the comments. Again, go check out the merch store again, mesa-makes-shop.fourthwall.com. Come get yourself a nice hoodie like I got. Mesa Makes down the arm. We got the Educate, Fabricate, Dominate down the back. Really cool deal to have. Again, for these prints, I will have these posted. I'm going to add that center liner. Actually, I'll do it right now. So we'll add here to here. It needs to be a center line of 1.5. And I'll add it on this one as well. Holes are centered 1.5. So you will have these drawings in the description. I'll make them one PDF and you'll have it ready to go. So that's going to do it for us. I will see you guys next week. Take care.